Hello, Las Vegas, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Golf at the Park, Angel Park Golf Club's weekly interview show. We start off every show by introducing our guest. Today's guest, I'm excited about. It's Nick Muniz.
How's it going?
How you doing, my guy?
Good.
Nick is kind of an OG Golf at the Parker. You've been involved in Random Golf Club for at least a year, probably more. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about a lot of cool things content-wise today. And so bringing that up, we want to thank you for liking and commenting and subscribing to these videos. And Nick, actually, this is going to air with about 3 or 4 days left in this September's content contest. Angel Park is more than a golf course content contest. And you've already submitted one piece, I know for sure, right? Where you and JR went and took pictures of you.
Yeah, he just was.
Yeah.
He's like, let's just get out there and just
They're
do
sharp.
something. Yeah.
They're sharp. And so everybody who makes a piece gets a ticket to enter a driver, and they also get entered to win free golf in different categories. So you're doing that, and everybody's doing that, and it's been so successful. I want to thank you all. You guys are... And it tends to be the people who watch this show the most are also just coming out and doing all the most inventive and innovative and creative pieces. And it's just really fun. And I want to thank you for that. We want to thank you for that. So all of that out of the way, Nick, it's the Nick Show. It's enough about Angel Park. Let's start at the beginning. Why don't you tell us your golf story from the jump, and if you got into golf later in your life, maybe start with if you were athletic, and just give us a background on your life background.
For sure. So, big soccer fanatic. That's my main sport that I grew up playing. But as a kid, whenever my grandpa would get me, he would take me to the range with him. So I had this kid's Snoopy set. It was just a driver, a wedge, and a putter.
At how old?
4 or 5.
So you, even though you were playing soccer, and you were playing soccer pretty crazy at 4 or 5?
Yeah, so I mean, because my dad didn't want me to do football because he played football, and he was like, just no head injuries or back injuries. So he's like, we can do baseball or anything other than that. So it was just strictly soccer and then pretty much golf. And that was it. And then, yeah, so whenever I would get the chance or had time off, really, I would just go do that. And then as I got older, and I had the time, my grandpa, he had a rule, essentially. If you can't hit the ball 100 yards, you can't go on the course with me. And I think that was more just for him to kind of get me to keep going out to try and hit the ball.
It's a good incentive program, for sure.
So, I mean, as a kid, even I was very, very, into sports and very competitive. So when he said that, I was like, okay, I was just hacking balls until I would get a hold of it. And I finally did. And then he took me to just a par 3 course. And
now, was that by the time you were 7, 8?
8, 9.
Yeah.
And I was able to hit. I mean, it wasn't going straight,
of
obviously.
Course,
but I mean,
but you're swinging the sticks and getting the ball in the air.
Mm-hmm, so I mean,
and playing holes.
It was awesome because he maybe got into it, golf, maybe 10 years before I started playing with him. So he had made a bunch of friends and,
So he got into it later in life.
Yeah, so he's a gym teacher. He was a gym teacher. So he played soccer growing up as well. So just getting into the sports with him, I was always doing something.
He was always athletic.
Yeah.
He just wasn't necessarily into golf until later in his life.
I believe my grandma was the one that got him his set, like his starter set.
That's fun.
And so, on the weekends, him and his buddies would go. So I would always like, hey, can I go play with you? Can I go play with you? And he'd be like, no, you have to hit the ball, farther. So a couple of his buddies had some sets that they weren't using. So then he was like, okay, yeah, he can have it. So I got a full set. Didn't have to pay anything for it.
And you're like 9 or 10?
9 or 10. and I was like, okay. So I played with those, and then he eventually got newer clubs. So I think the first set of clubs I had were the Callaway X20s, which, I mean, I don't know if they were good or not, but I was like, okay, it's a set, and then I got some wedges from a Goodwill.
Yeah.
And then I think the nicest club I had in my bag was the Sasquatch Nike driver, which I mean, at the
Those are
time,
good clubs.
I mean, at the time, I was like, okay, you know, it's a
Yeah.
great club. So, but yeah, I mean, he was the one that kind of was like, okay, learn how to hit the ball, and then after that, when we'd go to the range, he would give me nothing but a wedge. He's like, learn how to hit a wedge. He's like, because that's how you're gonna shave strokes off.
Yeah, and it's apparent. I mean, you're a good player. So it's not surprising that you started younger. But you said that you were more into soccer. So
Yeah.
why don't you talk a little bit about your dynamic of your athleticism in junior high and high school? I'm guessing you didn't play high school golf competitively, or yeah,
No.
because it was during soccer season,
I
right?
literally had no time for golf. So there was like once I really got into like competitive soccer to a point of where I was playing academy soccer and
Yeah, tell us about that because we've had tennis players, we've had hockey players, and baseball players. We haven't had a soccer player. So tell us about that so we can then compare and contrast it to
okay.
golf.
So originally from Denver, Colorado. So there was a
Go
couple.
Broncos.
Let's ride. as Pete always likes to
We're
say.
so bad now.
It's atrocious. But yeah, so there was at club level. I was playing up a couple years. So I was, and what made it hard for me is because my birthday falls on the last day of the year. So I was in between being able to play for the older group, but also they stuck me with the younger kids just because of my birthday. So I was always kind of playing in between, which kind of sucked because
Yeah, you were either the oldest or the youngest,
yeah,
depending
so
on where you got cut.
but it was also an advantage though because I got to play against bigger and faster kids, so I developed, I think, my skills a lot faster than some of the kids. So doing that, I just think, and then both my parents being, athletic, I just think kind of played into that. So my dad was very militant when it came to, like, if you want to be good, you have to practice and play with the ball. So, I mean, from a young age, I mean, I was studying, guys, their movements and all of that. So
every day you were kicking a ball around.
yeah, I mean, if I wasn't, my dad was getting on me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And so, I mean, that's just kind of how I am with like life. If I'm not doing something, I feel like I'm not like progressing. So when it came to soccer, I was very much like no girls, no partying, none of that, because my whole goal was like, this is what I want to do with my life, and I'm gonna do it to the fullest of my extent. So
Tunnel visioned.
yeah, I mean,
And focused and
yeah,
and
for
finding
sure.
a sense of it fulfills you, fulfillment, right? Like
Yeah.
that was what motivated you
Yeah.
at the time, and maybe still does.
No,
but-
I mean it does. I mean, in a sense, I've lost a good amount of friends due to it because they'd be like, "Hey, let's go hang." I was like, "No, I have to go train," and I was willing to make that sacrifice because just kind of what my dad instilled in me, and just I really wanted to try and make a living out of it and go pro. And I mean, it benefited me tremendously to a point of where I don't know if the Colorado Rapids.
Of course.
I made their academy team, so I played with their top players.
Wow. So all of their kids that were your age.
Yeah.
That were looking at making careers in soccer
yeah.
potentially.
So I played on their academy team, and then there was another organization. I don't know what it exactly stands for, but it's called ODP, and essentially what that is you do like rigorous like tryouts and training, and the best kids in certain areas of the country get put on a team. So I represented the West Coast, so the Midwest. So it was Midwest, California, and then you play East Coast. So I mean, I was playing the best kids in the nation, and it was the best soccer that I played, and I was fortunate enough to even make. I think it was like 2 years up, and I got to go travel to the Nike headquarters, and I played the Manchester United Cup, which is like one of the most prestigious like cups you can be invited to.
How old were you?
I think I was 13 or 12.
That's insane. So
So-
that's like competing in golf at a national. You were competing. At a
Yeah, I
national
mean,
level.
and it was insane. I mean, just it literally felt like I was a pro for that week or weekend that I was there because we got tour of this whole Nike headquarters. They give you your own bag, custom shoes, shirts, everything. So it was great. Like, I mean, the friends that I made in soccer, I still talk to them, but I mean, it's the thing that I hate, and I'm thankful for that my parents made the sacrifice, it's just how expensive it is, in just
Which
today's
is
game.
surprising to me to hear. So, because I always thought one of the appeals of soccer is that it wasn't expensive, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
but I guess it's different. The reason that it's the global sport is because it can be played inexpensively.
Yeah, yep.
But once you start competing,
yeah.
it's a different animal altogether, right?
So that was the thing, and then I tore my ACL my freshman year of high school. So that really kind of put a wrench in kind of, I guess, my progression, because I got to a point like I was just really like didn't know, like I thought I was done in a sense of like, I'm not going to be the same player, and my dad just kind of just like tried to let me figure it out, and then he was like, okay, we're just going to the gym. You're just going to train again. And so he kind of got me back in the whole mindset of like, you can't depend and wait on people and things to kind of push you in the direction, like, so you have to go make it happen. And his whole thing was, and kind of a mindset that I always have is like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So that's kind of always just been my approach to life and just in sports in general. So
your dad reminds me of John Wooden a little bit. I don't know if he's ever gotten that comparison, but it sounds like he was a coach and a life coach.
No,
right?
yeah, I mean,
like
yeah,
he's teaching two things at the same
yeah,
time.
I mean, and kind of how he broke it up in a sense was like, I'm your dad, I'm not your friend. So
I got that, Dad. Yeah, some of us got that, Dad.
But he is my best friend too. So it's like, we talk about sports all the time. Anything and anytime or anything I need, I can always call him and depend on it. But it was kind of once I got back from injury and started getting things out. He was like, okay, now we got to start thinking about college. And so I was like, okay. So I started training. Club soccer wasn't it. It was, I mean, it got to a point of like where it was beyond expensive to pay for, and I was like, it's not really gonna work out. So then I was like, let's just do high school ball, and just do maybe some camps here and there just to see. Didn't really pan out the way I thought, but he was like, you can always walk on. So my freshman year, I went to UNLV, was at the coach's door all the time, could never get him. So the summer going into my sophomore year, I just kept emailing him like every day, like, hey. And he was like, okay, well, why don't you come out for a camp? I was like, okay. So I did it. I think it was like a week's notice. So, booked a flight. I was staying in, I think at the time it was Tonopah, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So he just got me a dorm in there, and I was just staying there. And so I was training with a couple kids that he also brought up. And then the first team, I mean, absolutely lit it up, And then on the final day, I got a heat stroke, so I couldn't play in like the 11v11. So he was like, okay, well, didn't really get to see you fully play, but from what you showed us, we really want to move forward, so we want to bring you on. He's like, come see me at the beginning of the school year.
So you didn't get a scholarship, but you were on the team. You walked on the team.
So I walked on, so I went and saw him, and he was like, hey, we really want to put you on the practice squad. Kind of earn your spot. And I was like, man, that's all I was asking for.
That's so cool.
Just a shot, And so, and then, that's when the whole politics kind of came in. He asked me to come do a camp, and, I really don't want to get into kind of like the nitty gritty of like what happened. But
yeah, we don't have to. But did you enjoy the experience?
It was, I mean, for me, it solidified that I could play with the best. To walk onto a D1 program just out of the blue and play against his best players that he,
that
had
you
committed.
Could compete.
Yeah, and and that's one thing that my dad said. He's like, always believe that you can do it, and you can do anything.
Yeah,
and
that had to be a satisfying feeling, right?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work out the way I thought I wanted to. Like, I didn't get to play a game. I didn't get game time or anything. But to say that, hey, I did what I was supposed to do. I had the opportunity, and it just didn't work out. I can live with that because I did everything I was supposed to do getting to that point.
Yep.
And I don't have any regrets with how things turned out.
That's a great outlook. I think that's important. I think a lot of people, whatever their interest is, but especially in sports, look back at, what could have been. And I think instead of instead of necessarily looking at it that way, you looked at it as what you were able to prove to yourself and kind of achieve without needing to feel like you necessarily missed anything, right?
Yeah.
So how does that start to transform to golf? When do you start? Because now I think it's safe to say that you're all in on golf now, right?
Yeah. So once it was really like COVID is when the bug hit me. So
That's universal, it seems like.
and I mean, I would like whenever I would go, because when I was in college, my grandparents would come up for holidays, and my grandpa would bring my club. So the first course that I played out here was actually Angel Park, I believe.
I love this show because it seems like that's what people say all the time.
And I don't know which course it was, but we played out here. And so, I was like, okay, I didn't really think about it too much, but when I'd go back home, we had our courses that we would go play out there, and once COVID hit, my grandparents were like, okay, well, you can go back to Denver with your family, or you can come out here and hang out with us, and because they moved from Denver to Texas. So they were in, it's called Tyler, Texas, but it's really called...
yeah, that's West Texas, right?
Yeah, but they're in a city kind of like 10 minutes outside of Tyler. I think it's called Bullard. And, COVID wasn't a thing down there. So Texas didn't really shut down. So everything was open. So in between classes, my grandpa was like, let's go play golf. And I was like, okay. So we found a couple courses. There's a course literally across the street from him that had a driving range. And I was there almost every day with him. And then we were like, okay, let's go play the course. We fell in love with that course. And then we were trying to find different courses to play out there. There's a couple courses that you can drive within like an hour. But then we found this course. It's called Cherokee Ranch, which is about 30 minutes outside from where they are, and called in Jacksonville, Texas.
Yeah, so when we asked you, Kareem did a piece with you a month or two back, and you brought that course up. So shout it out again.
Cherokee Ranch in Jacksonville, Texas.
Cherokee Ranch in Jacksonville, Texas.
Yes.
I just think it's important to highlight them because I looked them up, and it's not a large golf course.
No.
Yeah.
But you would be surprised. So
and you guys fell in love with it. It seems like you almost fell in love with the game at that golf course.
I honestly did, because my favorite hole is out there. And it's so once I, really got into it, I went back home to work that summer. But then I was like, okay, I want to go back. So once I finished work and I needed to finish my school year, I was like, okay, let's go back. Started playing again. And yeah, that's where everything was open, so we could just go play and do whatever we wanted. Like, we were finishing rounds in 2.5 hours because no one was out there.
That's so great.
So, I mean, sometimes we go play 2 rounds, or, we were playing 3-4 times a week. And so that's my favorite course.
So are you just playing at that point, or are you also working in practice regimens? Because you're taking the game seriously. Are you seeing yourself noticeably improve?
So, I mean, this might be a hot take. I don't know how people think about it, but to me, the range is useless in a sense, because...
This is a hot take. I like it. Let's go.
You are hitting to a target that's going to be there the whole time. I would much rather go play 4 times a week and put myself in positions that cause me
constantly
having to evolve my game.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's nice. Like, if I haven't played golf in a couple weeks, and the night that Jay and I went out to the range was my first time hitting it. If I just want to get like the rust off, like, and just get how I want to feel the ball coming off the club face, I'll go do that. But I would much rather go put myself on a course and play 9 or play 18 and figure things out that way.
I wish that I would have taken that approach when I was younger. I think it's a very hot take, and I think a lot of golf purists would disagree with you. But I think there are all sorts of approaches now that new golf is starting to. Mm-hmm. I just saw a content piece yesterday or the day before that was talking about how we should be normalizing hitting balls off cement and concrete for beginners.
I saw that too, yeah.
Did you see that?
I saw that,
and I think there's something there, because I remember when we were kids hitting balls off the cement deck. Mm-hmm. it's easier to hit. Same as it's easier to hit on a mat. Hit a golf ball off a mat than it is off a turf. It's easier to hit it off concrete. And whatever anything stimulates people to get the ball in the air and to get that feeling, I say is good for golf. So I think it's a hot take that you don't. The range isn't necessarily beneficial, but it's worth discussion. Right?
I mean, it's definitely worth the discussion.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, some people, like I said, they're going to agree with it. They're not going to agree with it, well. But for my game and how I approach golf, it's helped me more to get out on the course and play than to spend an hour and a half on the range.
Right.
Like, for me, like, if I go to the range, like, I'll hit a few drives. I'll hit a few, iron shots. I'm mostly chipping. Because to me, I feel like that's a game where you're going to go and get shave strokes off, and then after that, I'm putting. Because those are the two most important things in golf to me.
Oh, 75% of your game is chipping and putting, right? Yeah, so.
I mean, and then outside of that, like, I'll work on my drives just to hit a standard shot, just to put something in the fairway. Like, I don't want to hit it far. I don't think you need to. Because, okay, cool, you can hit it 315, 320. But if you're in the rough and you have a bad lie, what does that do you?
Right.
Now you're having to try and be more creative and try and hack a ball out, where if you're 250, but you're in the fairway and you have a 100-yard pitch in or whatever, you're more comfortable.
Right.
And I got that from my grandpa, because he was just like, if you watch the pros, they know their yardages to a T, to a point where, okay, hey, with all the conditions that are going on right now, if I just put something in the fairway and give myself a shot at par, that's it. Which is my goal the whole time. Like, I'm going for par. I'm not trying to go for birdie. I'm not trying to go for eagle. Let's just stay in play and go from there. And, I mean, that outlook has just, changed it's dropped my handicap tremendously, and it's just made golf more fun for me.
Yeah, it's the Nick Faldo approach, right? Take 18 pars all day. That's not beating the golf course, but if you can pull that off and mix in one birdie, you've beaten the golf course, right? So your goal should always be par, yeah. Well, at least until you're really, really good. I guess it's probably different when you're an elite player, because then you probably should go chase birdies more often. But I think that's cool too. So how'd you end up getting to Vegas?
So I was sick of Denver. I was sick of the cold. And I kind of
We have so much in common when it comes to Colorado.
I lived there for 18 years, and I told my family, I was like, I want to go be an adult somewhere else and figure life out and meet new people. So I looked at going to school in Hawaii. I looked at Omaha, Nebraska. Can't remember the school, the big one out there.
Well, Nebraska. Is Nebraska in?
No, it was... I'm drawing a blank on which one it was. And then there's a couple small schools that I was looking at. But I visited UNLV, and I was like, okay, this is it. Just, because I'm a big fan of Ocean's 11, and then my dad and I love boxing. So all the big fights are always out here. Yep. So I was like, I might as well catch a few boxing fights in between, which I have, which has been, awesome. And then, fell in love with the city, fell in love with everything, the weather. And then I met my girlfriend out here, too. And so
that always helps.
So then, so she was the reason that I moved out here last year, just to kind of solidify the relationship and, kind of get things moving forward.
That's fun. I think that probably brings us to Random Golf Club now, and I want to lay the foundation of just how much Nick is an OG. We talk a lot about Brett Brunel, J.R. McMichael. Those guys kind of are credited with starting the whole thing. And then, Dylan has taken the reins with them. And I know John's been – there are guys who have been instrumental. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if any of them have a tattoo of Random Golf Club on their body.
Yeah.
So I can see it, but it's on your leg. Let's talk about the tattoo. Why don't? Because I think that'll be a good way for you to explain to us
RGC.
Yeah, and what it means to you and how you got involved.
So should we start with like me coming here with the whole golf scene and then kind of leading into RGC?
Sure.
Okay. So moved out here January of last year. And like I said, I got bit by the bug, so trying to figure out golf here. And so I started playing a few courses. Angel Park was the first one because, I mean, I knew about it, I played it. So I was playing Palm a lot, and then when I felt like my game was in the right direction, I'd go over to Mountain. And, you know, along the way there, I was like, okay, let's see what the golf scene is like in Vegas. Because in Denver, it can be kind of snobby. And I was like, I hate that. I mean, that's the one thing I hate about golf. Is like, I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll get into that later.
Yep, we will talk about that, and I know what you're saying.
So I was like, let's just see. So I was out here a couple times and a couple courses and came across some guys that were super awesome, very welcoming, and then I came across some guys that were just complete, I mean,
that's tough.
Just jerks, you know, and came across some racial stuff that I've had some stuff thrown at me before, but I mean, just to blatantly say it, you know, and just have no remorse about like what they said, I was like, whoa, okay. I was like, so in my head, I was like, and it happened more than once. So I was like, is this the golf scene? You know, so it kind of turned me off from going. And
well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I think and I'm just going to be blunt, I think when racism and topics like that have come up on this show in the past, we haven't spent a lot of time on it. And I'm not saying I want to turn this into a political show or a societal discussion, but I think it's important that we maybe take a few extra minutes on this, because I agree that the goal is diversity and acceptance and accessibility. And I believe that we're the generation that's going to carve golf out of some of its old bad habits. So let's address it. Let's bring it out into the light. I mean, without saying the words, what are specific examples of what happened?
So it was more so like, I'll just touch on one time, because I mean, this one went on the whole round essentially. So got paired up with 3 other guys. 2 of the guys were, you know, super cool, like, hey, you know, I'm so-and-so. One guy didn't even introduce himself to me. So in my head, I was like, okay, you know, that's fine.
So you're going to play golf for 4 hours at least, and he never introduced himself.
Didn't shake my hand or anything. And I was like, okay, in my head, I was like, maybe he's having a bad day, you know. And just my outlook on life with people was like, don't assume, because you don't know what they're going through or what kind of day they have. So
you have the right outlook going in.
I was
give
like,
them the benefit of the doubt.
I was like, hey, man, you know, I have my own cart anyway. Like, we don't have to talk. Like, we can just hit our ball and just, you know, both go about our day. I think a few holes in, he asked me, you know, where I'm from. I was like, oh, you know, I'm from Denver. He's like, cool. He's like, are you, you know, like, what's your nationality? I was like, no, I'm Mexican, you know, Native American, Spanish. He goes, okay. And then, you know, a few holes go by, and then I asked him, you know, where are you from? He's like, oh, I'm from California. And I was like, oh, cool, man. I love California. And he's like, yeah, it was cool until all the Mexicans came in and ruined it. And I just laughed, and I was like, oh, I was like, okay. And I was like, have a good day, man. I was like, you enjoy your round. I was like, I'm going to stay, you know, in my car. I was like, we don't need to talk. I was like, don't really appreciate that comment. But, you know, he kind of just looked at me like, what did I say? And I was like, dude, I was like, have a good day, man.
Yeah. I mean, how?
I mean, so like that was my outlook on Vegas golf, because it kept happening.
Isn't that a shame?
So
isn't that a shame?
It sucked, because I was like, man, there are some nice courses out here. So if there was a gap where I just didn't play, because I was like, I don't want to go and deal with that. So like, it was just like I would come to the putting section of the course, or like I'd go to the range. I just didn't want to be paired with anybody. So then RGC comes, and it was a battle of like, I just don't want to immerse myself with that again, and people that have that mentality still of just thinking like that.
Yeah, it's tragic, actually. I think that you can have that experience happen to you a couple of times and then think, oh, that's what golf in Las Vegas is like. So I'm so thankful that you caved on Random Golf Club. What made you cave? What made you decide, well, I'm gonna give this one last shot?
It was my girlfriend, because one of my goals coming out here was to find a group of guys that I can play golf with, because I literally only knew my college friends and my girlfriend. None of them played golf. And so she was like, well, why don't you go? Because before I left Denver, there was a chapter that I was going to join, but then I was like, I'm leaving, so there's really no point. And then I stumbled across RGC Las Vegas, and I was like, I just like, I'll just keep doing me, and just figure things out that way. And she was like, why don't you just go? Like, it's not going to hurt. Like, if it happens again, you just know what the scene is like out here.
Right.
Like, and so she was like, just don't let it bother you, And so I joined, and I just stayed quiet. Like, when I got there, I was like, I'll introduce myself if someone comes up. But, like, for the most part, I'm just going to stick to myself.
Dylan has the same story, right? I don't know if he was like at first, I was very quiet, but I liked that they were easily accepting of me coming out of my shell at my pace.
And that is really kind of what turned me on to, like, okay, there's more to Vegas. Because Brett, I was just standing off to the side, and he was like, what's up, my man? Like, I'm Brett, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I'm Nick. And he's like, oh, where are you from? And he literally chopped it up with me for like 5 minutes.
He does that with everybody.
Yeah, and
it's so special. Brett, you're special, dude.
Yeah, so that literally made that whole night. And then he made me hit the first tee shot of that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, dude, I don't want to do that, And I don't know if I hit a good shot or a bad shot, but that kind of solidified, okay, this is what it's about, And then later on that round, he came back and he introduced JR to me. Mm-hmm. And from then on, I just clicked. And I was like, okay, this is maybe something that I can get involved with. And the next meetup after that, they invited me out to, but I can't remember. I was busy doing something. And then he was like, okay, well, we're having our 1 year anniversary, swing by. And I was like, I'll think about it. And I think Brett might have called me or messaged me. He's like, dude, just get your butt out here. You're going to come. And so I went, and we had it at 5 iron. So there's a bunch of guys just hanging out.
I remember I was there. Wasn't that the night Eric came?
So funny enough, no one knew he was going to show up, which was crazy. So
I think a couple of us did, or maybe they
I think
knew
they
he was
kept
in town and
they kept it on the low about it that. So I get there kind of late, and
not to interrupt, but let's explain. Eric Anders Lang is the owner of Random Golf Club nationally. Mm-hmm. And so Brett and JR had done such a good job building the Las Vegas chapter that he came out, and they played golf here on the mountain golf course. They played as an 8-some off the first tee, so they got to kind of do what they do. It was, and it was neat. And then that happened to be the same. I don't know if it's the same night or the same 2-day trip, but yeah. Then you guys had the thing. So now explain that night.
Like I said, I show up kind of late. I get there, and as I'm walking to the booth, I feel someone tap me on the shoulder, and I turn, and it's Eric. And he's like, "What's up, man? I'm Eric." I was like, "Hey, man, I'm Nick." I'm like subconsciously freaking out.
Of course.
I'm like, okay, and he's like, yeah, let me write your name tag.
And he's totally approachable.
And he's like, yeah, so like, what brought you out? He talked to me, and I was like, and for me, right, like, I found RGC like during COVID, and so to like have that like experience with him, to talk to him, like, how they say you don't always want to meet your heroes and stuff like that, but I can say like 100%, like how he is on camera is how he is in person. Like, he's just that, like, approachable, relatable. Like, you can ask him anything, and he'll just sit and talk to you, which is great, which I think is, like, why I fell in love with his message and RGC, just period, which leads to the tattoo on my leg that, I found, JR, Dylan, Pete, Kyle, Steven, and John, right? Like, those are the guys that I really meshed with.
Well, yeah, let's maybe even before we get to the tattoo, because you guys have a group text click kind of group of guys within Random Golf Club. And I was talking with Kyle about it on Kyle's show, and he didn't seem to remember 100%, but I know something was happening that I didn't imagine. So it was Kyle and JR and I watching Game 7 of the Knights at Angel Park.
Yeah, yep.
And you guys were all texting each other. Who was the one that was, because Kyle thought it might have been Pete, but someone was actively rooting for Miami.
I was.
Oh, that was you?
It was me. I was.
okay.
Okay, so this
is great.
This is also leading into a bunch of other things. So I'm a huge Brooks Koepka fan. And the guys give me some grief for it because he was going for the Panthers. And so
that's right.
Everyone knows the gif of him clapping.
Yes, where he doesn't blink.
And he doesn't blink, right? So when
which we all know what that means.
When I think the Panthers won the first game or second game, I sent a video of me clapping in front of the TV, like acting like him, and they were pissed.
Great.
They were pissed. And that was like the first real time that like they were like, okay, Nick has some banter in him. You know, I don't really talk trash. I don't really like, because like my dad was always like, just stay level-headed and, you know, just prove them wrong with whatever. So once they got that side of me, they would like, it just kept coming out. So yeah, I was just giving them, you know, crap left and right. Banter.
I was enjoying it so much because I knew about it, and Kyle and I had just shot our first version of his show that morning, and so we had all of these thoughts and discussions about how fun you guys are, and I just remember that. And so when I asked Kyle about it, he's like, "Oh, I don't know if that was Pete or yeah." So now you remember, Kyle.
Yeah.
I was going to say your memory was just a little iffy. Okay, so back to talk about you have a voice and that dynamic. Kyle said that it started with, was it you that was making tea times and sending texts out to groups of people?
Our buddy Pete is.
It was Pete.
He's a golf fanatic as well, but he's very much. He's the guy. He's like, hey, I booked a tea time for next Saturday for 4. Who can go? And we're all like, you know, scrambling to look at our schedules, you know, and checking with, you know, our girlfriends or wives, you know, like, and we're like, okay, we'll go. And so it's more of like, it's very sporadic. Like, we'll have moments of like where we're talking about PGA, and then we're just giving each other crap the whole night, you know. And my girlfriend laughs at me because she was like, did you know, you talk to them more than you talk to me at times. and I mean, like, it because I mean, I'm a morning person, so I mean, I'll start texting maybe at like 6 in the morning, and then we'll be texting till like 11:30 at night, because Steven and John, they both have, you know, kids, so they're up at, you know,
at the right spurts,
you know. So it's everyone has different times, you know.
Group texts are, I think, one of the most interesting things about technology. You know, they can be the most special thing.
Yeah.
They can also be so incredibly annoying if they're not your bag, right? So I only have a couple that I engage with because they're so great, and it's always us talking about things that are funny or interesting, or giving each other grief, whatever. I love that. I love that you guys do that, and it's a way to communicate. I think that's fun. And I want to get into content discussions too, but let's stay with the tattoo.
So I've been going back and forth on getting tattoos, and I'm one of, like, I just don't go and get something without any meaning. So every piece that I have on me has a meaning of some attachment to me. And so RGC was one that was super easy to kind of go about, you know, because I came into a new city having really like no friends outside of the ones I made in college, but all of my friends lived in Hawaii, so they were so far, and I was trying to convince some of them, like, hey, like, come back to Vegas and live, you know, I'm moving there, like, you know, so you won't be by yourself. It took them a little bit, but some of them came, and, you know, I fell in love with the group of guys that I met, and I was like, not only does it represent kind of the message that Eric has kind of built on, but it's also the family and like the friendships that
I've been wondering if I could use the word family.
Oh,
and
100,
you finally just
100%. I mean, it's
family.
To me, you know, and I'm a person, you know, I'm always very wary of people just because of, it's just who I am and just kind of how I look at life, you know, like
You're guarded.
Yeah, and I just think that has to do with certain things that have happened in my life. But I always want to give people a fair shake because I think everyone deserves it. No one. I just like I said, no one. You don't know anyone's life story. You don't know anyone's day.
Correct.
And it's if I can be just kind of the 5 seconds in someone's life of like saying hello and being that positive point in that person's day, I'll do it.
That's so admirable and inspirational and wise beyond your years. That's cool.
So, and I just think it's kind of, this tattoo is paying homage to the way that I've been accepted from the little family that I have out here. And so, and it's been nice too because, there will be times, I mean, I don't know how many rounds I played of golf out here where people recognize the tattoo and they're like, it's kind of bold. And I'm just like, well, and then they're like, what's so special about it? And then we get in conversations and some of those guys have come out to meetups.
Yeah.
And so not only is it like a good talking point, but the meaning behind it and the people that are involved to it, it means everything to me, and I'm getting more added to it next week.
Oh,
so
fun.
it's it's just.
So
yeah.
Are you going to add golf stuff?
Yeah,
or?
So it's going to be more kind of involved with RGC. So it's kind of bad. My dad's one of the friends that he grew up with is a tattoo artist out here. And so, I mean, yeah, my girlfriend's like, why? And I'm just like, why not?
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's that was my first tattoo. So before anything, but yeah.
I love that was your first.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about content because I think that I'm correct in assuming that you found Random Golf Club through Instagram.
Yep. So I just kind of searched on Instagram RGC to see if anything else would pop up, and of course I think like Denver, Salt Lake, and then Las Vegas popped up. So I'm like, I'll follow and just see.
Yeah, and one of the things I like to say about Golf at the Park, it's named Golf at the Park, but it really isn't. It isn't a show about Angel Park. It tends to overlap with Angel Park a lot, which is fun. But every show is like today, this week, it's the Nick show, right? And we're trying to dive into the individuals, and I think. One of the reasons we want to do that is because we get golf stories and we get content creator stories. Not necessarily, not everyone's a creator, but they're definitely consuming content, right? And Random Golf Club was really good, and Eric Anders Lang was really good at the use of social media to extend their reach and their brand. Why don't you talk about how you're Samba Nick, so let's talk about why your tag is the way it is. I remember that for the first month or something, I thought your name was Sam. I thought your name was Sam Bannock, and so let's talk about your name.
So my favorite soccer player is Ronaldinho. And he's from Brazil.
Yeah, he's kind of famous.
Yeah, he's kind of big time. And so I just fell in love with the way that he kind of just approached the game. Like, always have a smile on your face, enjoy it, whether it's a good game or a bad game. And, Brazilians are known for their samba, their flair, and their dance. So that just always stuck with me. And I always, told myself, like, if I was ever having a bad game, or I'd be like, just play with samba, just have fun, because they love the music and the rhythm and the dance. So I was like, let's just go out there. So that just is something that I just always just was like, let's just add it to my name, you know? And everyone asked me, they're like, why? They're like, it makes no sense. And I'm just like, well, if you knew, like,
I like it now.
And it just kind of is me in a sense,
My daughter was asking me why people have all these nicknames recently, and I was like, she's like, everybody has a nickname.
Yeah.
She goes, it's Big Matt instead of Matt, and it's Scales. And I was like, well, Scales is just his last name.
Yeah.
Big Matt. Samba Nick, I knew it had something to do with flair and dancing and something. I mean, it's branding, right? I mean,
nicknames are like, so I have 3 from JR in the group. So I'm pretty sure you've heard. I think Kyle even mentioned it. So the first one that I had was Soju Sensation.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yes.
that was. I mean, like I said, I'm not a.
Where'd it come from? How was it said? How was it said first?
So I think I was playing with Kyle, JR, and Ron on Mountain. And anyone that's in Vegas golf knows that when the greens are rolling at Mountain, it's tough.
Yeah, most people, they're starting to know, but the mountain golf course is built on a hill, and everything breaks down because the grass falls that way. So when people say everything breaks away from the mountains or everything breaks towards the strip, that's because that's the way the grass lays. So you can have an uphill putt going east that is not as uphill as you think it is.
Yeah.
Right? So it's tricky. And the mountain, especially when they can get them tight, the stimp meter is crazy. Like they can get very fast.
It's tough
and very difficult.
I think so. I was playing really well that day, and they were like, what changed?"
Yeah, what's
and
secret
so
sauce?
I had a bottle of soju, and Ron was like, "Dude, you're the Soju Sensation."
That's great.
Like, and so I got that nickname. That one stuck for a while, and then JR was looking at me swinging my driver, and he noticed like I'm kind of quick. And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna start calling you Nicky Fitz because Matt."
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Matt
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, has a quick backswing,
Yep.
so that one stuck. And then it's now evolved into.
I was gonna say you have a Nicky Fitz.
I do.
Tag.
But,
You just don't use it very often.
I mean, it's very rare that I do. But you know, my girlfriend laughs at me because she's like, "Why do you even have social media?" She's like, "If it's not Lionel Messi, are you even keeping up?" I was like, "No." Like it's very much soccer or golf, you know, like it's so.
Well, let's talk about Messi. I mean, it's not golf, but it's something that you're fascinated about, and I have interest in Florida because Dan Lebitard is from there, and he's kind of my inspiration, my model for this show. I think he's a good interviewer. I think so. Anyway, I root for the town of Miami, and yeah, Messi going there is a big deal.
Yeah.
What do you think that means for MLS, for soccer in America?
I mean, obviously, like if you're a big soccer fanatic, you'll know that he's not the first big name to come over. Beckham was the one that came over, right? And then after him was another guy. His name was Thierry Henry. I'm not sure if the name.
I remember his name, but yeah, I don't.
And he played for the New York Red Bulls, and you know, to me, I was like, okay, that's a big name, right? Like, grew up watching him at Arsenal and then at Barcelona, and then after him, you know, you had Pirlo, David Villa, Steven Gerrard, and then Zlatan, who was another guy. I love that guy. Went to LA, and you know, he made a statement, and so I would watch the MLS because he played. But when you get an icon, you know. And this might be another hot take, but I feel like Messi has surpassed, like, and Michael Jordan as being like one of the most, you know, branded and recognizable athletes of all time. Him and Cristiano Ronaldo, like those two are.
I don't think it's
right
a hot
up there.
take. I think you're on the right side of that debate, just because they're global.
I mean
Michael Jordan is global too.
Don't get me wrong.
He won gold medals and he's known across the globe. But you know, I would say, you know, Muhammad Ali even was more than Michael Jordan. Not now, but
oh, with what
those
people
that can really reach globally, right? And Messi he's the it guy right now.
I mean, and if you look at, yes, in Europe and just, you know, the rest of the world, soccer is the number one sport in the world, right? So there's really no need to brand Messi in Europe because, you know, the name says itself. But in the U.S., soccer's not the number one sport.
Right.
So when you get a guy like Messi to come over and, you know, he signs with, you know, he's obviously an Adidas athlete, you know, and then now Apple's pushing his name. The people that aren't into soccer, when they realize, you know, who he is and what he can do, I look at him, he's the Barry Sanders of soccer. You watch a game because there are moments in the game
you're waiting for him to do
that make
what he
you
does.
your jaw drops because you're like, how is this even possible, you know? And you know, my girlfriend laughs at me because she'll tell me your day depends on a 5'7" Argentinian man on whether he has a good game or a bad game. Like if he has a bad game, your mood is not good. But if he has a great game, you are the most ecstatic and nice person out there, and you'll carry and nothing will get to you.
You know she knows you better than anybody else.
I mean,
so how does that make you feel when you sit and think about that?
I mean, she's
right.
No, she's 100% right. I mean, she's my best friend. Like she knows me better than, some of my best friends. I mean, I live with her, so she picks up on certain things. But I mean, yeah, Messi coming here, it's probably the biggest sporting move, I mean, to happen. And I felt like that would have happened if Cristiano Ronaldo would have came. It would have been the same thing. I mean, just how the U.S. markets certain things and, billboards and everything. Yeah, I mean, I was ecstatic because now I don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn to watch him play. I can, start watching him at 5 o'clock at night.
That's great. Let's go back to content. So do you enjoy looking at it more than, because you said your girlfriend teases you that Messi's the only thing. So do you follow like the random golf club guys that are
like I said, it's more,
or are you very touch and go?
I'm kind of touch and go, but like when it comes to like golf and soccer, like those are the two things that like I'm on social media for. So anything related to RGC, Random Golf Club Las Vegas, or soccer, like I'll watch it and I'll see kind of what's going on. I mean, I'm heavily into YouTube golf.
I was gonna say, how do you consume it? So more YouTube than watching like the golf tournaments, the PGA, or
no? I mean, I'll watch. I mean, the great thing for me is I work from home, so I'm able to. I mean, I can just throw it up and just have it on and just kind of see what's going on.
So you like all the golf content?
Yeah, I mean, it's
instructional, funny.
Yeah, pretty much anything that like I can consume.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny that those people, you're one of those guys that TikTok is the best algorithm. I think we've discussed that a little bit because it just tailors for you what it's very good at tailoring what you like. So if you get on TikTok and you start liking golf stuff, you can get all sorts of golf content, right?
Yeah.
It's across the board. There's so much that I really do think it's the future. I think that that's the way the game's going to expand and grow and evolve, which I think is fun. Let's talk about clubs. What are you playing? What do you like? Are you?
So it's right now. I actually have the driver that you're
Oh,
giving
you have
away.
the Ping G430.
Yeah, so
Well, how do you like it?
I love it.
Well, this is an advertisement. This is
I told Kyle this. So I'm a big Ping guy when it comes to like their driver. Like I don't think I'm ever gonna change from Ping because I had the 410 before, and I love that one.
Right.
But I was like, new club. Let's see what it's about. I mean, I went to get fitted for it. Could not hit TaylorMade. Could not even hit the Callaway. Or Titleist, anything. But the moment they put that club in my hand, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm very much a feel guy, like when it, like in sound. And once I hit that one, I was like, okay, this is it. I was like, let's just now get the shaft, and then we'll be good to go. So I have that. And then irons, I have the Callaway Mavericks, and then I have the Cleveland wedges, and then I have a Ping putter, Ping hybrid, and then fairway wood. I think I have Callaway. So I'm kind of sporadic, but I mean for the most part, I'm a Callaway Ping guy.
Fun, that's cool. What about travel golf? Have you played much golf outside of Denver or Vegas?
So I recently just went on a golf birthday trip with John in August. So
and where'd you go?
We went and played Rustic.
That's right. I saw pictures.
So
yeah. So tell us about that.
He kind of just pitched the idea. He's like, hey man, kind of last second, but you want to go to California for my birthday? I was like, yeah, because I mean that's been a bucket list thing because my grandpa would do it all the time where he would call out of work and be like, hey, I'm sick, and him and his buddies would jump on a flight in Arizona and fly back that evening.
They would call in sick to work to fly to Arizona to play golf.
So it kind of
your grandfather?
Yeah.
Wow, he's my hero.
So my grandma works for United. So we used to fly buddy pass. So there have been times where like he's like, hey, let's go play. So I mean, he would do that all the time with his friends. So like in my head, I was like, that's like normal. So when John pitched that idea to me, I was like, let's just do it.
Let's
like,
do it.
Let's no questions asked, you know. And but yeah, I mean, that was one of the nicest courses I played. I mean, I just think just from the vibes itself of having John, his brother, and then
Sure. That makes half the difference,
yeah, I mean,
doesn't it?
Yeah. So
and if the weather was nice, it
oh,
helps.
it was I mean, it was great.
How'd you play?
So one thing I did not account for was how the altitude was going to change club distances.
Yeah, you're lower.
So I figured it out kind of late. So I think I shot like 90 something, you know. But like for me,
so you were just blowing them long.
Yeah, so John's very competitive. So is his brother. So when I went out there, the way that John pitched it to me was that, hey, my brother wants to play you in a match. Can you beat him for me so that he can stop like talking smack? And I was like, dude, I really just kind of want to go out there and play golf, you know? Like I don't really want to play a match. And so leading up to the trip, John's brother was like, you know, like, hey, you know, we should just play a match, man, because I want to see like where our games are at. And I was like, okay. And
I love that he's trying to hustle his brother, and maybe you at the same time.
So here's the thing, though. So his brother, he's a good golfer. He's super confident in like certain aspects of his game. And so the day before, I was like, okay, well, how many strokes am I going to give you? And he goes, well, he's like, why don't we do 5? I was like, okay. Because I think realistically I was going to have to give him like 7 or 8. And so then we're in the car driving up. And I didn't mention this, but I thought this was hilarious. We're in the car, and I was like, yeah, so how many strokes am I going to give you? And he goes, well, realistically, you're supposed to give me 8 or 7. Why don't we just meet in the middle and you give me 6 now? And I'm like, so what changed? I'm like, you're so confident going into it, and then now you're wanting that extra stroke, right? And so I was like, okay, so we're going to go from the first hole. And John goes, yeah. It was either John or his brother. They're like, yeah, why don't we do a practice hole? I was like, what are we doing? I was like, let's just get the match over with and, like, just start. And so we started playing, and then I think I was, like, 1 up. I was 2 up. And then but after, like, 6, 7 holes, I was, like, 4 up. And John's brother was pissed. And then I think the match ended at, like, the 14th hole or 15th hole. And then that next hole, I hit like one of the most atrocious shots I hit all day. And John's brother goes, so now you want to play like that after our match is done? And Dylan said the same thing when we had a match a while ago. And to JR's point of view, I think John coined it, but now my nickname is Nick Koepka. So that's my that. And I think John coined it because the way JR puts it, you've seen Kill Bill, right?
Of course.
So you know, like, right when she's about to, like, just tear up everyone, it's like that siren.
Yep.
That's how JR classifies me when I'm in a match. I'm very just, like, laser focused. I don't talk, you know. And his rule about playing a match with me is, and I don't think he tells anyone this, but, like, don't chirp me. Because then that's when Nick goes, like, psycho mode, and then it's just, like, done. And so Dylan, John's brother, and a couple of people that I played have chirped me, and then, like, yeah, it was, like, done after that.
So a couple of weeks ago, you were out with JR, Ron, and Dylan, right? Mm-hmm. Was that the foursome?
Yeah.
Were you playing competitively that day, or were you just having fun?
I think we were just having fun that day. Because I think that was the day you were filming.
Yeah, I was filming some stuff.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
And you made I can't remember if it was a long birdie putt or a long par putt.
I think it was a par putt because.
But you were stoked, and it was a long putt.
Yeah,
you rolled in like a 22-footer or something.
I hit a horrible chip shot, and I had to chip on.
That's right. You hit a great drive.
I duffed the second shot, chipped on. I had a long putt, and then I sunk the par putt, and. Yeah, I was like...
But I remember you being excited, and I didn't know if you were in the middle of one of your hyper-focused things or not.
No. It's... Yeah, like, I'm very much a person that, like, if I'm not playing, like, a match, I don't care about score. I don't. For me, score is secondary. So if I'm out with, you know, the guys, like, I don't keep score myself. They'll ask me, and I'm like, I don't know what I got. And they're like, oh, okay. And they'll help me add it up. because I just feel like, you just need to go out there and just
Yeah.
play and have fun. Like, yeah, there are times where, okay, let's see where my game's at and I'll keep score. But I just feel like, if you're out with a group of guys, why beat yourself up on a score that could ruin your day, right?
Yeah.
Like, if, okay, cool, I shot a 6. I don't care. Like, it's not the end of the world. It's just a game,
Yep.
And
it's the best outlook you can have.
So, like, even with guys that I don't play with, right? Like, obviously there's those guys, right, that say they got a par, right? When, you're playing with them, they got like an 8,
Yeah.
For me, the outlook that I have on it, and I mean, I do this with the guys that I play with, is let them put the score down that they want, because for them, that might be a confidence boost. Like, okay, like, hey, I know I can shoot that. So on the next hole, let's go and do it, right? So if I can just be kind of like the positive influence.
Yeah, you're always giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. I love that. No, that's an admirable trait.
I just think, like I said,
it's easier to just say they're cheaters and they're disrespecting the game, right? It's easy to say that.
I mean,
but there's a good point in what you're talking about when we talk about loosening the rules. If they don't want to play competitively necessarily, they're not trying to play for money, and they just want to write down a good score. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
This is how I look at it. They paid for their round.
Yeah.
They can do what they want to do, right? Like, I've played with guys that are like, hey, do you mind if I move it off? I'm like, dude, don't break your club. Don't break your wrist. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, or, they're hitting their second shot and they're in the rocks, and I'm like, dude, throw it out. I'm like, who cares? Like, have fun with the day.
Yep. I've always agreed with that mindset. I think that's the right way to look at golf. Nick, you impress me, man. You've got all sorts of good outlooks and philosophies on life. I think it's cool. Thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna do our second episode. Well, not episode. We're gonna do the second segment of the show now, which is our par 5, where we ask the same 5 questions of each guest, come up with different answers. You're familiar with these questions, so you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's your favorite golf movie?
Bagger Vance.
Legend of Bagger Vance. Why do you think that is?
I just think it's relatable in a sense because Juna loses his swing, right? And everyone feels like, and what Bagger says, right? Everyone has their own unique swing in them.
Yep.
You just have
it's
to find
part
it.
Your personality.
You just have to find it, right? So, like, when you look at that, right? Like, not every part of your game is gonna be firing on all cylinders every day. So if you can just get one part of your game that you can rely on for that day or whatever, and dial it in, you can have a great round. So I just feel like that, in a sense of, like, when he says it's just a game, look at it like that, right? Like, just have fun with it. And don't beat yourself up on what, quote-unquote, golf should be. Getting birdies, shooting under par. That's not what golf's about. I'm not a pro. I'm not playing for money, like you said.
Right.
Just enjoy the day with whoever you're with and go out and swing and hit the ball.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Question number 2. What is your favorite club in your bag and why?
It's tough. So
it changes.
For me, it's my 56 because I feel comfortable from chipping from pretty much anywhere. But the guys would say it's probably my driver because, I mean, for a good amount of time I'm in the fairway just because.
So you hit it well, but you also almost take it for granted because that it just comes naturally for you to hit the driver well, it seems like?
Well, I think it has to do with the fitting. And I think that if you're going to invest in clubs to go get fitted because – I mean, Steven is a guy, like, he really pushed me to go get fitted because he was like, you can hit stuff off the rack, but you're going to be fighting it, because, I mean, the technology and the equipment is there for you to benefit from. Go get fitted to fit your swing in your game. I mean, and it was night and day from my 410 to my 430 because I just had the 410 off the rack.
Yeah.
And the 430 I got fitted for, and, I mean, I can depend on it. It's my Gandalf the Grey. It just leads me in the direction that I need to go.
That's cool. I love that. Question number 3. What is your dream foursome? So I'm going to give you any 3 people in the world, alive or dead, that you get to choose to play golf with you. Who are you picking, and where are you going to go play golf?
So it'd be my grandpa and I for sure, and then Brooks Koepka, and Victor Hovland. I just think
I love that, and we know why for the first two, but Hovland hasn't come up. So why would you choose Hovland?
I just think that his approach to the game, like when you look and see him do interviews, he's very much in the mindset of like, it's a game, you know? Like people give him grief, you know, when his wedges weren't great, you know, when, you know, they said his swing was a bit off, you know, but he always seems to still contain his sense of humor and just be himself.
And he's in a tough spot, right? He's right on the cusp of being dominant. You know, one of the guys in the game, but not quite there. He's like right at the bottom of the first tier of guys, but with all the ability and you're right, he does. It's not aw shucks, but it's just a perspective on the game. I think his perspective on the game that is cool. That fascinates me how certain personalities tend to be drawn towards similar personalities that they root for, right? Yeah. Especially in golf. But you said it the same way about soccer players that smile all the time, right? Like it's an outlook, and that's why you're drawn to that, because you're playing soccer and you're smiling, you're playing golf and you're smiling. Yeah, that's fun. Question number 4. I've been looking forward to this because we've had conversations, and I know you've had conversations with the Random Golf Club about alcohol. So the 4th question is, what's your aiming fluid? And it doesn't always come up with alcohol. The fun part of that question is we're in the desert. Water is always the most common and repeated answer. But the dynamic between drinking and playing has always been fascinating to me, because some players genuinely feel, and it's almost proven, that they can play better after a couple of drinks, right? And you said that not only do you not drink on the golf course, you're not a drinker, and you feel pretty passionate about that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So, I mean, obviously, Soju Sensation, the nickname, right? Alcohol, you know,
right.
But that was a time where, like, I mean, I would sip, you know, it's nothing like where I'm going crazy, you know, but I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I had a drink. And I just feel like for me, and this is my outlook on life, is that you do not need to have a drink in your hand to have a good time. I just feel like, you know, it's just like a common thing now where, again, a hot take, in order to be sociable and to feel like you're kind of part of what's going on, you need to have a drink, you know?
And there's a discussion to be said there that some people need that for social anxiety reasons, but they could be harnessing that energy in different ways, healthier than with alcohol. Is that kind of what you're arguing?
I mean, here's the thing: to each his own. Do what you're gonna do. I'm not gonna judge you. I'm not gonna look at you any differently.
Right.
But for me, and you know, like even my dad, he never drank around me when I was a kid, so I never saw it. You know, like so I didn't. You know, put 2 and 2. I was like, oh yeah, no, it's cool to have a drink, you know. Even my grandpa, like nothing, you know. I mean, he would like smoke cigars, but like even then, like that didn't creep in my head, you know. So I've never smoked anything, never done any types of drugs. So alcohol.
No, you're straight edge.
Yeah. So that's then, cool. I was just like, again, back to the soccer thing, right? Like I just felt like alcohol and drugs would be a hindrance to me progressing.
Yeah.
So I just carry that over now. It's like, again, the whole social aspect. I just don't think. But to your point again, like I feel like it's kind of hidden, you know. Some people would be like, "Oh, it's just, you know, it's me casually having a drink, right?" But what does casually having a drink mean?
Oh, sure.
There's, you know,
and I mean, yeah, you can take that analogy or that description so far as to this show. There are questions in a corporate world about why I would be talking about alcohol, because the corporate philosophy is exactly what you're saying. If everybody sat down and said, you know, you don't need to have a drink, but at the same time, it's part of the thing, and we sell alcohol, right? And people use alcohol. And I loved that you said there's no judgment, right? That's your personal view, which is my awesome. View. Yep. I love talking about all of the different ones. So that's cool. And now let's go to question number 5, which is, let's talk about anger. Have you had an anger streak? Do you have problems with anger when you're competing? Have you tossed clubs? Have you broken clubs?
So I I've thrown clubs and I've had like anger, addressed on the course. And JR and Kyle were with me when I had my worst one. There was like a stretch of 4 holes where I just could not get anything going. And I mean, when I talk about I was probably hard to play with.
Yeah, you were broken in your head, so you were also completely uncomfortable to play with.
So I mean, and I apologized to him after the round. I was like, you know what, that's on me. Like I should not have gotten that carried away with it, And from that day on, I've just I went back to the whole it's just a game.
Yeah.
It's if and the whole 17B laugh at your bad shots. I mean, I have a saying too where if I hit a bad shot, I'll just say I'm not mad. It is what it is. Just play it, and then if we get a 6, we get a 6. If we get a par, we get a par. Like score does not matter. So, I mean, there have been times where I've thrown a club, and had to go pick it out of the weeds. But as JR likes to say now, throw it in the direction that you're going to be walking, so at least it's in stride. But I mean, I haven't thrown a club or gotten mad since that moment because I was like, there's no need to.
So that's when you that was your turning point.
Yeah, that was my turning point.
That's cool. I love that. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
do you have fun?
Yeah, great.
This is a good time, right? Yeah. Want to thank you for watching, and also want to let you know that I'm about to sign off, but then we're going to do a third segment here in a bit, so you might want to just not turn YouTube off right now. But as for this show, we're done, and we'll see you next week. And until next time, hit 'em straight from your friends at Angel Park Golf Club. All right, turn to face the camera. So, segment 3. We're just going to do a little bit of self-indulgence about the show. The show's 10 months old now, and so that means we've got about 40 episodes in the can, and it's been fun. I feel like we're getting better and better. The show's finding its voice, and I knew that it would take some time to do that, to figure out what it was. And what it is the sharing of local golf stories and mixed with golf content, both consumption and production of. And all of the different people who are involved in that to varying degrees and through Angel Park, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And it's been fun. And I think what it's time now is the next generation of this is we're going to start having guests in for the second time. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I'm a better interviewer now than I was in January and February when some of these guests were on. Some of the most important guests, frankly, to me and to the show. The original guys, J.R. McMichael. And there's a bunch. But we're going to start having them on because now we know how they were introduced to golf. But what I'm more interested in now are discussions about the future of golf and what they're doing to help encourage that and promote that and the growing of community. And one example of that is probably my OG, which is Mike the Video Wizard. So I want to shout him out right now and personally request, I sent you a text last night, but I just want to say it on camera. I would like you to come in and shoot the next show. I think it would be a lot of fun. And the reason I'm choosing Mike specifically is because he's the one who started all of this content with me. I feel like he's been my partner at Angel Park in this experiment that has turned into something really, really cool. So, and the reason that I did this tag at the end is because let's be honest, there's probably only somewhere around 50 to 100 of you that are watching these. And that seems like a small audience, but it's not, because you watch religiously and you watch till the end. And just like you were saying earlier, Nick, you just consume golf.
Yep.
When you have an opportunity, and everybody consumes it different. Everybody likes their different things. But the people who like long form content seem to dig this show. And so, Mike is an interesting example because he's making his career. He's trying to monetize and his career as a filmmaker. And there have been challenges with that that I want to talk about and that I want to platform. So that's what we're doing. And I appreciate you hanging around to listen to these all the way until the end or watch these all the way until the end. We're going to get this to where it's on all of the podcasts where you can get it at any podcast. I'm going to start submitting the audio versions. I'm way behind on that, but hey, it's a growing process, right? We're just learning and growing. So, yeah, that's the completely just self-absorbed tunnel vision synopsis of what's going on with golf at the park. So thank you again for watching. Sorry to ramble so much. We'll see you next week. Nick, thanks for putting up with me, guy.
Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.